This is Lesson 4, Welcoming Diverse Perspectives. In the previous lesson, we explored the benefits of intellectual humility and a growth mindset. We learned that when we acknowledge mistakes and weaknesses, we can grow and develop. This is at least one reason to engage with people who think differently than us. These conversations help us uncover the errors in our own thinking. Still not convinced? In this lesson, we'll dive deeper into this important question: why talk to people you disagree with? We'll explore this question while working through an interactive mystery. Along the way, we'll highlight 5 benefits of engaging with diverse perspectives. Then, we'll add some complexity. Is speaking with people we disagree with always a good idea? Let's get started. If you have mixed feelings about talking to people who think differently than you do, you're not alone. Many people say things like, "I don't think I have much to learn from people who think differently than me." Another common response is, "I know I should talk to people with whom I disagree, but I just feel more comfortable with people who see things my way." Can you relate to either of these responses? Yes or no? We totally understand either way. We're all prone to seeking our viewpoints that support our existing beliefs and avoiding those that conflict with them. It's a natural tendency. We're going to highlight the benefits of welcoming diverse perspectives into your life. To illustrate these benefits, we'll lead you through a scenario where you'll need to solve a mystery. Before we dive in, we have a question. What's the mascot of your school? It's a pacer, of course. Imagine there's a large statue on our high school campus of the Pacer on display in a prominent location. The statue is beloved as a symbol of our school pride. One morning, however, someone on campus wakes up to an urgent school-wide email. The Pacer has vanished. The principal wants to get to the bottom of what happened. They decide to ask a few students to investigate the disappearance of the Pacer, and you've been selected. The principal promises a $500 reward to the person who figures out what happened to the Pacer. Great. So far, the following rumors have been circulating about the disappearance of the Pacer. Number 1, a disgruntled former principal stole it to get revenge. 2, a student kidnapped it to hold it for ransom. Or 3, a group of students took it down in protest against campus policies. How would you begin to approach this challenge? Would you team up with other classmates, or would you try to solve this on your own? Either way, that's totally reasonable. But working with others can bring different information to your attention. Let's step away from the mystery for a moment to consider the first benefit of engaging with diverse perspectives. What's the benefit? Benefit number 1. Welcoming diverse perspectives helps you uncover the full truth. Many cultures have inherited a parable from ancient India about the blind man and the elephant. In this story, 6 blind men come across an elephant for the first time. Each touches a different part of the large creature, and as a result, each disagrees with the others about what they're actually touching. Each one is convinced that their conclusion is correct. To resolve their disagreement, the 6 men consulted their local ruler, the wise Raja. And we can see here, touching the tusk makes you think that this thing's a spear. The long trunk, it's a snake. The thick, legs, it's a tree, etc. here. Raja explains, an elephant is a large animal with many parts. Each of you only touched one part. If you put all the parts together, you'll understand the truth. Okay, so what's the point of the parable? The parable reminds us that our individual perspectives rarely tell us the whole story. As we already learned, we tend to assume that we experience the world objectively, and as a result, we confuse our impressions with opinions and facts. But in reality, we interpret the word subjectively. Each of us is only seeing a part of the complete picture. When we encounter someone who has a different perspective, we can remember this parable. By incorporating each other's perspectives, we fill in the gaps in our knowledge and understand the full truth, or at least as close to the full truth as what we can get. I always think of the truth as a statue, right? The statue changes depending on whether you're looking at it at eye level, from a bird's eye level, from a worm's perspective, from behind it, etc. Each of those different perspectives on the statue is still true. But if you only look at the statue from a worm's point of view, you probably miss, the majesty of the sculpture in question. To summarize, write down which of the following better represents the message of this parable. We should consult with others with more wisdom than us, such as the ruler in the parable. Or, to learn the full truth, it's important to seek out others' perspectives. Write down the one you think is correct. Teaming up with others means you can combine your individual insights together to learn the truth about the disappearance of the Pacer. In fact, by asking other people on campus what they know about the situation, you gained an important insight. The student who was suspected of kidnapping the Pacer has a rock-solid alibi. They couldn't have been the culprit. You're making good progress on your investigation, but you reach another dilemma. What is it? You know a classmate named Nick who's great at finding information and solving puzzles. It strikes you that he might be very helpful to have on your team. Your concern is that he often disagrees with your views. When you've been in classes together, he always challenges your ideas and opinions. Here's why you're wrong. Should you invite Nick to join your team? Right, yes or no? Yes, we agree. Having someone on your team who challenges your ideas can actually be a powerful tactic. It can be strategic to help you team up with people who don't share your point of view and aren't predisposed to back up your ideas normally. Let's take another quick detour from our investigation to discuss why this is effective. Benefit 2. Welcoming diverse perspectives helps you make wiser decisions. 2 heads are better than 1, the saying goes. For a lot of decisions, it's helpful to consult others to make sure you aren't missing anything important. But psychologists have found that a group of people who can make worse decisions together than they've made working on their own. These individuals often fall prey to confirmation bias, the automatic tendency to seek out and interpret information in a way that already confirms what we already believe. It turns out this can affect groups of people too, if they avoid ideas and perspectives that challenge the group's consensus. This is likely to happen when a team is made up of individuals who may have similar viewpoints, who are simply likely to back each other up instead of challenging each other's ideas. Like this team here. Let's look at an example. In 1986, NASA's Challenger space shuttle was scheduled to launch from Florida's Cape Canaveral on an unusually cold January morning. The night before the launch, a group of engineers warned NASA that small but crucial parts of the shuttle, called O-rings, could malfunction at low temperatures. NASA went forward with the launch anyway, despite the engineers' warnings. Sure enough, the O-rings failed and the shuttle exploded just minutes after liftoff, resulting in the deaths of everyone on board, including civilians like a teacher who was on board and killed. Why did this happen? Groupthink. Some experts allege that the Challenger space shuttle explosion in the 80s resulted from a phenomenon called groupthink. Groupthink occurs when pressure for conformity within a group becomes so powerful that it suppresses dissent or disagreement and stifles the ability to consider alternative perspectives. Groupthink can make groups so sure they're correct that they reject evidence that exposes faults in their decision-making. It turns out that the leadership behind the Challenger launch were so set on launching the shuttle according to schedule, they ignored signs of problems with the O-rings for nearly a decade before the explosion. They silenced and shunned engineers who presented data demonstrating the safety risks. Imagine if someone's doing that with AI right now. The damage could be inflicted on our whole society, potentially. Avoiding groupthink. Luckily, we can steer clear of groupthink and make better decisions by using the same kind of tactics we leverage to overcome our individual confirmation bias. For a group to fill in its knowledge gaps, it needs to contain varied perspectives. Without this, the group will have similar gaps in their knowledge, which means they're unlikely to be able to spot what they might have missed. The group as a whole ends up having blind spots. Ensure that members of the group speak up and share their perspectives when they disagree with one another. Otherwise, those blind spots will never get in. Challenging ideas is highly encouraged. What are some other strategies used by effective teams? Well, successful teams often make a point of welcoming disagreement and listening intently when members dissent. It might sound counterintuitive, but it's often good when members of a team disagree and voice conflicting views. In other words, many successful teams work to cultivate intellectual humility. They embrace the possibility that they could be wrong. They go out of their way to poke holes in their own thought processes and welcome others doing so it makes sure they aren't missing something important. To recap, write down which of the following are steps a team can take to avoid groupthink. Write down all that apply. Ask that team members share their ideas first. Recruit members who bring different points of view to the team. Encourage members to voice dissenting opinions that go against the majority view. Write down the two that recap this section. Teaming up with people who tend to see, and of course pause the video when you need to do so. Teaming up with people who tend to see things differently from us, like your classmate Nick, might help you avoid making mistakes or ignoring crucial information. For example, imagine you started to lean towards the theory that the disgruntled former principal stole the statue. Everyone on your team agrees with you, except Nick. Nick points out a flaw in your theory. There's video evidence showing that the former principal was traveling at the time of the Pacers' disappearance. It seems like Nick was a valuable addition to the team after all, but after a bit of time, a new problem arises. After further investigation, your team has gathered extremely strong evidence showing an unexpected conclusion. Your closest rival school stole it as a prank. Based on the evidence, you're convinced. The problem is, Nick strongly favors the theory that a group of students took down the pacer in protest against campus policies. Even though the evidence supporting your view is very compelling, Nick is convinced of his view. What do? Write down which of the following that you would do. Would you tell Nick he needs to spend more time with the evidence? Or would you invite Nick to share his views, even though you're pretty sure he's incorrect? The second one, right? Invite Nick to share his views, even though you're pretty sure he's incorrect. Write that down. Pause the video when you need to. Good thinking. Although it might seem like a waste of time, listening to Nick can actually prove extremely useful, even if you've already convinced you're correct. Let's take one last detour to consider what you gain by having conversations with people with whom you disagree. Benefit 3, becoming more persuasive. Being able to express your views in a clear and compelling way is an invaluable skill. It increases the likelihood that you'll be understood and is especially crucial when persuading others to adopt your view. You may feel strongly about a particular issue, but when someone disagrees with you, you may find it difficult to articulate what you believe and why. Putting yourself in situations that challenge your ideas is the best way to build your communication skills. You can practice expressing and defending your views like a training session to build up your persuasion muscles. Speaking with people who disagree with you also gives you valuable insight into their beliefs and motivations. Without this knowledge, it's hard to anticipate challenges to your views and to articulate your views in a way that's compelling. The Taoist thinker from China, Sun Tzu, warned, "If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat." In other words, no matter how well you know your position, it will be difficult to persuade anyone who sees things differently unless you truly understand the views they hold. To review, write down why it's helpful to have conversations where other people challenge or criticize your views. You can practice expressing your point of view in a way that could potentially persuade others, and/or it helps us learn about the people's personal weaknesses. Go ahead and pause the video and write down the correct response. Your team developed the theory that your closest rival school stole the pacer as a prank. By conversing with Nick, you've honed your ability to explain your view to skeptical listeners. You confidently explained your conclusion to the principal. They immediately sent a group of students to the rival student's campus, and sure enough, there's the pacer. Shortly after, the pacer is brought back to its rightful home, and the principal thanks you. They graciously award your team a $500 reward. Even though you found the pacer, there are 2 more benefits of engaging with diverse perspectives you can learn about. How would you like to move forward? Learn about the benefit of unlocking creativity and innovation? Learn about the benefit of building diverse coalitions to solve important problems? Both? We're going to do both. Unlock creativity and innovation. Here's a story that demonstrates what can happen when 2 people with different perspectives and life's experiences have a chance encounter. In the 60s, 3M chemist Spencer Silver was working to develop an extra strong and durable adhesive, but he accidentally came up with the opposite, an adhesive that allows surfaces to stick together but can easily peel apart. Silver presented this finding at a company seminar but couldn't find any practical use for it. 6 years passed. Then one day, Art Fry, Silver's colleague, approached him about his seemingly useless adhesive. Fry told Silver that he used pieces of paper as bookmarks in his choir hymnbook, and the paper would just fall out. But if an adhesive could stick paper non-permanently, Fry's bookmarks could stay in place. Silver and Fry teamed up to pitch a new product, Post-its. Now, 50 million Post-its are produced and sold by the company 3M each year. In Silver and Fry's case, luck brought them and their distinct perspectives together. We can learn from their example, and we can be proactive about seeking out alternative perspectives. Build diverse coalitions to solve difficult problems. There are numerous tough issues facing our society that can be tackled through collective action, where people work together to bring about change. The more complex the issue, the more important it is to build a broad and diverse coalition where we work alongside people with different perspectives to achieve a common goal. Many of the greatest leaders and social change activists have made a point to form a diverse coalition. For example, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the late Congressman John Lewis, who were devout Christians, built broad multi-faith coalitions with Jewish and Muslim leaders. Another awe-inspiring example is the story of Nelson Mandela, the first president of South Africa, who was imprisoned for almost 2 decades before that. Before rising to the presidency, Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years for his role as a leader in the struggle against apartheid, which was a rigid system of racial segregation which disempowered the nation's black majority. Upon his release from prison in 1990, tensions were incredibly high among South Africans. The nation was on the brink of a civil war, but Mandela steered his party away from retaliating against the white leaders who had imposed apartheid. He insisted that both parties work together on a mutually agreeable path for a unified nation. Over several years, Mandela negotiated a peaceful end to apartheid with the president at the time, F.W. de Klerk. After winning the presidency himself in '94, Mandela persuaded de Klerk and many members of de Klerk's team to join his administration. Abraham Lincoln did the same thing. This unlikely alliance proved crucial to Mandela's success in restoring unity and building a cohesive South African national identity. We need to do something similar in our own country, if you ask me. And there are other examples of productive disagreement. For example, there are many stories we could tell, but we could learn from past presidents, and click on the TED Talk from Doris Kearns Goodwood. Lincoln himself said, "Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" Dare to disagree. Entrepreneur Heffernan used disagreement to strengthen her arguments, which succeeded in banning x-rays on pregnant mothers, something that's common sense today. But at one time, it did happen to people. Review. We've covered a lot of ground so far, so let's recap what we've learned. As we saw in the parable of the 6 blind men, we can be completely convinced our view is correct, even when we're only seeing part of the truth. Engaging with diverse perspectives helps us overcome our natural limitations. It offers these benefits. It allows us to expand our knowledge, helps us to make new discoveries and unlock creativity, and empowers us to make wise decisions and avoid groupthink. It improves our communication skills so we can be more persuasive. It makes it possible to build effective coalitions. One final takeaway is that it is often advantageous to work alongside people who disagree with us. How are you feeling about this? Good or still a bit skeptical? Either way, we totally understand. Let's talk about the challenges that can arise when we team up with people with whom we disagree. Doing this work is extremely difficult. Collaborations, partnerships, and movements frequently fall apart if group members get caught up in their differences. All too often, small disagreements escalate into obstacles that prevent progress towards common goals. We end up dividing ourselves into smaller and smaller factions, and we lose our collective power. In 1917, the psychologist Sigmund Freud coined this tendency as the narcissism of small differences. Fortunately, we can change how we react to disagreements. We can treat them as a secret weapon for improving our team's thinking rather than an obstacle to achieving our common goal. Let's do a little thought experiment to play this out. What's a social issue you feel strongly about? Describe the issue in a few words in a complete sentence. Just pause the video to do so. Which of the below better describes your philosophy on how to make progress on this issue? Write down one of these options. The only way to make a difference is to use aggressive tactics to get attention for your cause, or aggressive tactics tend to antagonize people and turn them away from your cause. Which is correct? And again, all we have to do is observe society and social media. We already know the answer to this, don't we? Now, imagine that you meet Nazrin, who is equally devoted to the children of the state and their welfare. These are the orphans. But Nazrin disagrees about the best method of advancing the cause. She thinks the only way to make a difference is to use aggressive tactics to get attention for your cause. Taking care of the children of the state, the orphans, that's the social issue I picked because it's extremely important to me and nobody tends to care about them, unfortunately, even though they should be cared for as well or better than you are, if you ask me, and I'm willing to pay more taxes to make that happen, right? Anyway, Nazrin disagrees about the best method of advancing the cause. She thinks aggressive tactics are appropriate. Which of the following would be a more productive way of reacting to your disagreement with Nazrin? Write one of these down. By talking through our differences, Nazrin and I can work together to find the best approach to advance the cause. Or B, Nazrin must not be a true advocate of the cause. The first one is great. Correct. It probably won't help to paint Nazrin as an adversary just because of a small disagreement. Instead, this can be an opportunity to strengthen your group's strategy and advance your common cause. You can follow the advice of civil rights activist Pauli Murray, who was a member of the LGBT community, a person of color, and a graduate of Yale, who said, "When my brothers try to draw a circle to exclude me, I shall draw a larger circle to include them." The wider we draw our circles, the more effective we will be in creating the change we want to see in the world. But let's be honest, welcoming diverse perspectives isn't always easy. Even when you know it's beneficial, speaking with people with whom you disagree is difficult in practice, nor do these conversations always lead to productive outcomes. You may have questions in your mind like, are you saying I should be willing to talk to everyone in every circumstance, even if they say something truly hateful? Rest assured, that is not what we recommend. What we do recommend: where to draw the line. In a perfect world, we have an elegant one-sentence answer, but in reality, deciding whether or not to engage with people who hold different views is complicated. There are circumstances where engaging is important and productive, while at other times it might be counterproductive. In short, there's no magic formula to figure out when to engage. Only you can determine which conversations deserve your time and energy. Even if you come up with the general rules, you might find they don't apply in every situation. We recommend you take the time to carefully evaluate situations on a case-by-case basis. While we might initially want to shut down a conversation, if we slow down and consider the situation, we might decide it could be valuable to engage. So while we can't tell you where the line is, we can equip you with tools to help you draw that line yourself. Good faith versus bad faith. One important factor is the intention of your potential conversation partner. Is the person, quote, acting in good faith or bad faith? Acting in good faith means someone has a sincere intention to be fair, open, and honest. In contrast, people acting in bad faith don't intend to have productive dialogue. They may be trying to provoke or harass you. You see this on social media, of course. As a general principle, engaging with people acting in good faith can lead to rewarding conversations, but it's wise to avoid people acting in bad faith. The difficulty is, of course, someone's intentions aren't always obvious. We generally recommend giving people an opportunity to demonstrate their intentions. By determining how much of a chance you give someone requires using your judgment. We can help by giving you the opportunity to explore this a bit further. Below, you'll see the most common concerns we've received from previous Perspectives learners about engaging with diverse perspectives. Click to read our responses. We always are eager to learn from others, so if you have a concern that you don't see addressed, share it with your teacher, me, or hold it till the end of the program. Which of the following questions are you curious to read about? You can select one at a time, and when you finish reading your first choice, you'll be able to click additional questions to read. Why should I risk judgment or retaliation? It's totally understandable if you're fearful that speaking your mind could lead to social and even academic consequences. Unfortunately, in our current climate, there are serious risks. But if we never are willing to face these risks, we may perpetuate problems that can only be solved through open and honest conversation. Too often, those with the loudest voices dominate the conversation, and if we avoid expressing our views, others who see things the way we do will also keep quiet. So instead of withdrawing from conversation, you can think about how to engage. It's important to keep in mind that these conversations are hard and they take time. Rather than keeping your thoughts on a tough topic to yourself or waiting for the big moment to reveal your thoughts on the toughest topic, you can begin by easing into these conversations. You can start by delicately asking questions that go against the consensus view or raising alternative views to play devil's advocate. This will give you the opportunity to start exercising your conversational muscles, and it will begin preparing your conversational partner as well. It may also encourage others who share your views to speak up. Why should I risk being brainwashed? It's understandable that you might be concerned about being manipulated by someone with crazy or even dangerous ideas, but we want to make it clear. Being open-minded does not require you to believe everything you hear. Sometimes people are just plain wrong, and sometimes they do have bad intentions. Listening to someone's ideas, however, doesn't mean you're going to be brainwashed. Being open-minded doesn't mean that all ideas are worthy of belief, but instead, quote, all ideas are worth investigating, at least initially. This requires critical thinking. Try to carefully evaluate the evidence rather than accepting new information at face value. You can also seek out other people's perspectives or additional sources to learn more before you adjust your beliefs. And perhaps most importantly, have confidence in yourself. Maybe instead of the other person persuading you, you will be the one that persuades them. What about conspiracy theorists and people who spread misinformation? It's concerning when people spread lies to benefit themselves and harm others. This betrays our trust and degrades honest communication. Those intending to deceive are acting in bad faith, and you don't owe it to them to hear them out. It's important to note that not everyone spreading incorrect information is intending to deceive. There's a big difference between people who purposely create disinformation, is what it should be, and people who unintentionally fall prey to it, which would be those who share misinformation. Some people with good intentions accidentally end up believing falsehoods. If they spread misinformation, they may be doing it unknowingly because they genuinely believe what they read or heard. It might be uncomfortable to admit, but it's likely we've unintentionally done this ourselves. Have you fact-checked every single article you read online before sharing it? Have you ever accidentally misremembered a detail or misunderstood something? We all get things wrong sometimes. As we've learned, our brains take shortcuts to avoid the overload. So keep in mind that you might be interacting with someone who has made an honest mistake. I love how X has the new community notes feature to help fact check certain posts. What about trolls? Trolls intentionally enter conversations to be malicious or inflammatory. We are not advocating that you engage with trolls or provocateurs. It's very unlikely this will lead to productive conversation. If you witness someone engaging in extreme trolling behavior, such as harassment or bullying, we suggest you avoid them. They're clearly acting in bad faith. block them on social media, right? But you'll also likely encounter less severe cases where people express themselves rudely but aren't necessarily acting in bad faith. In those situations, try doing a little detective work to evaluate their intentions. You can ask yourself, am I certain their goal is to derail the conversation or offend me? If you're not certain, try giving them the benefit of the doubt. In fact, try giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. Assume they're doing their best. Assume they're trying to help. Some people might appear to be trolling when they're really just passionate, especially in online conversations or texts messages. It's easy to misread someone's tone or intention. If a person has no interest in having a productive conversation, you can always just walk away or mute them or block them. Since trolls get satisfaction from riling people up, you'll maintain the upper hand by remaining calm and dispassionate. What about people who defend harmful ideas or actions? As we've mentioned, deciding who you're willing to speak with or what topics you're willing to discuss is a deeply personal matter. We may resist discussing certain ideas or topics because they seem to question your own worth as a human being or the worth of a group whose welfare you're deeply concerned about. This is totally legitimate. However, we'd advise you to analyze the situation and weigh the pros and cons of engaging. It's easy to underestimate the power of conversations to change others. When considering a conversation with someone who defends ideas you strongly disagree with or find harmful, ask yourself, am I absolutely certain this person can't learn or change? When we encounter someone who holds a view we find abhorrent, we may assume they lack the capacity to change. But when we do so, we're falling prey to a fixed mindset, which we learned about in the last lesson on intellectual humility. Just as we have the capacity for growth, others do too, even hateful people. As the Indian civil rights leader Mohandas Gandhi said, no human being is so bad as to be beyond redemption. Yeah, and I would add, if you're a child and you know more than me, I will listen and be ready to talk. If you're a long-lived person or an elderly person and you don't know something that I do, I will teach you. Ironically, their best hope for growth is if someone treats them with compassion and engages them in a non-judgmental conversation. If we simply refuse to engage, it's unlikely they'll ever see things differently or recognize the error of their ways. We're certainly not saying that you must confront extremists or members of hate groups, but there may be encounters where an honest conversation could start to prompt them to reconsider their positions. Later, in Lesson 6, we'll learn about a man named Daryl Davis, who is a black civil rights activist who has successfully persuaded hundreds of Ku Klux Klan members to change their ways through the power of conversation. It's also important to keep in mind that talking to someone is not the same thing as endorsing or approving of what they're saying. Simply talking to someone doesn't make you guilty by association. Your character is a reflection of your actions, not anyone else's. Why should I engage when the burden always falls to minorities to explain themselves? You might be thinking, I'm so tired of having to explain myself to people. It's not my job. Maybe you feel frustrated that you have to take up the work when other people don't. You might even wish people would do some of their own research before coming to you, although there's a chance that without your guidance, they'll be reading resources that may make you cringe. Whatever the scenario, your feelings are valid. It isn't fair that some people have to do more work than others to be understood and seen for who they truly are. Rest assured, you don't need to open up to everyone at all times and have these conversations. You're not obligated to explain your point of view whenever someone asks. Take care of yourself so you have enough energy to tackle things that really matter to you. But it's valuable to recognize these challenges can also be opportunities. Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish they knew X, or I wish they'd think about Y with your voice? They could learn what they were missing before, so use it. Good faith versus bad faith. One important factor is the intention of your potential conversation partner. Is the person acting in good faith or bad faith? Again, acting in good faith means someone has a sincere intention to be fair, open, and honest. Again, in contrast, people who act in bad faith don't intend to have productive dialogue. They may be trying to provoke or harass you. As a general principle, engaging with people acting in good faith can lead to rewarding conversations, but it's wise to avoid people acting in bad faith. The difficulty, of course, is someone's intentions aren't always obvious. We generally recommend giving people an opportunity to demonstrate their intentions, but determining how much of a chance you give someone requires using your own judgment. We can help by giving you the opportunity to explore this a bit further. Below, you'll see the most common concerns we've received from previous learners about engaging with diverse perspectives. Which of these questions are you curious to read about? We're going to read about them all. And I actually just took you through all those. So this is okay, here's one. What if the conversation isn't taking place on equal footing? It's true that conversations about difficult topics can be more challenging when you and your conversation partner aren't speaking on a level playing field, especially if you're speaking to someone who has influence or authority over your future, like your teacher. You may be worried that a disagreement could damage your relationship or even jeopardize your academic future. As with all disagreements, you must weigh the risks of a conversation going badly and potentially leading to negative consequences against the rewards of voicing your point of view. You certainly don't need to risk damaging an important relationship with an authority figure, but there may be some topics that you'll be upset with yourself if you don't speak your mind. Here's our advice. Build up your confidence and communication skills by approaching difficult topics in conversation with classmates, friends, and so on. This practice might make it easier to explain to an authority figure why you disagree with their point of view. And you're always welcome to disagree with, the people who are sharing views in writing and in speeches and so forth in our class. I don't know everything. I'm wrong a lot. Why should I risk your safety, you may be wondering? Well, let's be clear. If anyone threatens you with any kind of physical violence, you should absolutely remove yourself from the situation immediately and report the threat to an authority. Never risk physical danger to have a challenging conversation, even if you believe you see an opportunity to create change. Even if your physical safety isn't at risk, there may be times when you feel uncomfortable because engaging on a particular topic or with a specific person is taking an emotional toll. Sometimes choosing not to engage might be necessary to take care of yourself, but if we always avoid difficult conversations, the mere thought of addressing the topic that stirs up strong emotions is likely to bring up even more fear and anxiety for us. Think of the first time you did something new or scary, such as learning to drive a car or putting yourself in a new social situation. At first, most of us feel understandably anxious, but with practice, you rise to the occasion with little to no anxiety. If you want to change how these interactions make us feel and become more empowered, we can train ourselves to keep our emotions from running the show during difficult conversations. We'll learn this in Lesson 7. Why should I even bother wasting my time on these conversations? You probably had some conversations where it felt like things were going nowhere. Even if you're talking to someone who is acting in good faith, some discussions only lead to a stalemate. We're not saying you have to engage with every possible perspective on every possible issue. That certainly would be exhausting and impossible. Just keep in mind that it's easy to assume you'll be wasting time on people who won't take your ideas seriously. How can you be certain when someone is thinking if you don't speak with them? In fact, research shows our expectations are often wrong. When it comes to interacting with others who have differing viewpoints, people tend to have more positive experiences and find more common ground than they expected. Another question to ask yourself is, are conversations only valuable when we can change someone's mind? Even if the other person doesn't budge, we can still gain from the interaction. You may, for instance, hear arguments you've never considered before. You may also gain the other person's respect by demonstrating that you're willing to hear them out. Building this respect is a step towards mutual understanding. Of course, you may have questions or concerns about engaging with diverse perspectives that we haven't addressed. We'd love to hear your thoughts so that I can fill in any blind spots. Are you thinking about something else we didn't address? If so, what's on your mind? Use this space for unaddressed questions or concerns. In the next lesson, you'll learn techniques to help you feel more confident and prepared to navigate difficult conversations. To summarize, write down the answer to this. Should you always feel compelled to engage with people with whom you disagree? Yes, we should always be open to any conversation, no matter the circumstances. Or no, there are many factors to keep in mind, and it's up to each individual to decide if and when to engage in conversation. We should try to be open, and yet there are many factors to keep in mind. So in the end, it is indeed up to each individual to decide if and when to engage in conversation. Exactly. Here are some life hacks. To continue developing intellectual humility and to practice opening yourself up to diverse perspectives, you can try these life hacks. Ask yourself, am I seeing the whole elephant? The next time you find yourself disagreeing with someone, consider the possibility that understanding the truth might require putting both perspectives together. Number 2, keep your eye on the prize. The next time you find yourself disagreeing with someone over something small, bring your attention back to what you're trying to accomplish. This will help you keep the disagreement in perspective. Number 3, build your persuasion muscles. Every week, try to read or listen to one opinion you know you disagree with. I do this myself. This will help you better understand opposing views so you can strengthen your own arguments. You can find multiple angles on news stories by checking out all slides or by signing up for The Flip Side, a 5-minute daily email that summarizes the main news events of the day from the best sources of the political right and the political left. If you're not, listening to both sides' perspectives on these big issues, you're not really seeing the whole thing, right? Okay, to review, ask yourself, am I seeing the whole elephant? The next time you find yourself disagreeing with someone, consider the possibility that understanding the truth might require putting both perspectives together. Speaking to people with whom we disagree can lead to a variety of benefits. The first benefit is that it helps you uncover your blind spots and find the truth. Exposing ourselves to different perspectives often brings our attention to information and ideas that were previously hidden from our view. The second benefit is it helps you make new discoveries and unlock creativity. Taking in new perspectives gives us access to ideas and information that we need to come up with to have innovative solutions to difficult problems. The third benefit is that it helps you make wiser decisions and avoid groupthink. Simply adding more people to the decision-making process doesn't necessarily lead to good outcomes because groups can fall prey to groupthink. To avoid this pitfall, we need a diversity of perspectives among the members of the group, as well as the right conditions to foster open discussion and dissent. The fourth benefit is it helps you become a more effective communicator. Engaging with people with whom you disagree is the best way to train yourself to speak persuasively to those who see things differently from you. And the fifth benefit is it helps us build diverse coalitions to solve difficult problems. By engaging with people who see things differently from us, we can find partners to work with in order to achieve common goals. Of course, there comes a point when we have to draw a line between ideas with which we disagree and those that are worth discussing, and conversations that just aren't worth having at all. It's entirely in your power to decide where you want to draw this line, and as you make these decisions, you can consider the various pros and cons on a case-by-case basis. This completes the lesson.